I'm the largest living organism in the world, and yet I can be single-celled. I was at the start of modern medicine. I can battle toxic chemicals. I thrive at night and even glow in the dark. I'm at the end, but also at the beginning. What am I? You may have played the video game back in 2013, or more recently watched HBO's hit show The Last of Us, set in a post-apocalyptic world infested by infected zombified humans after contracting a parasitic fungal infection. The show left us wondering, could this actually happen? We got in touch with one scientist who's dedicating his life to studying the zombie fungi, Cordyceps.
What are cordyceps?
So Cordyceps is a group of fungi that has the ability to infect the insects, to manipulate the host behavior, making them real-life zombies, like the zombie ant fungi.
Talk to me about why they do this zombification. What's the purpose of that?
The zombification is the behavior manipulation. So the fungus goes undercover before the ants recognize that infected one as infected. The Cordyceps will remove the ant from their nest and position it in the summit position where the microclimate is ideal for that species to reproduce.
That's cool. So they basically, the ant is a host, but it's to carry it to a perfect place for it to reproduce.
Yes, exactly. So it serves as a nutritional source for the fungus to exploit, and also to drive the fungus to a proper location for its development.
The truth is, these types of zombie ant fungi are not as small as you'd think. There are about 300 known species with an estimated 600 species yet to be discovered. Plus, there are even some here in the United States.
I have described 3 species for United States, the zombie ant fungus for the United States, one from Florida, another one from South Carolina, another one from Missouri. And we are at this moment working on describing a new species from Pennsylvania.
Is there a way to actually use the cordyceps fungi for good? Like a pesticide almost?
Yes, that's a really great question. And yes, we can, but for that we need to understand way better the diversity of these fungi, because we know like a tiny percentage of them. And then once we describe and we understand the species of fungal species that are infecting that particular species of insect, and then we can introduce the fungus to control just that pest, not any other insect in that region. So I think this would be a game changing for that.
Coming off from The Last of Us, is it possible that these types of fungi can attack humans, can impact humans?
It's very unlikely, because these fungi, they co-evolve to infect ants. It's one species of fungus to infect one species of ants, so they're very specific. So imagine for that species to do the host jump, as we call, from ants to humans. So that would be a huge leap they would need to take, and how many genetic changes would be required to recognize humans as a suitable host, to establish and to overcome the human immune system, and then to do that.
Thankfully, there's no zombie fungi apocalypse about to happen, but we do know there are some serious fungi out there. Fungi can also cause infectious disease, and earlier this year, New York experienced an alarming spread of Candida auris, a fungal infection caused by yeast that can infect wounds, ears, and bloodstream. Normally, people are not harmed by this, but those high-risk patients in strained hospital settings should beware. Flipping the script, not all fungi are feared. One species actually launched modern medicine. The common antibiotic penicillin came from the penicillium fungus, accidentally discovered in 1928 on a moldy petri dish. These organisms hold a balance of power that has captivated scientists for decades, and even everyday folks. It's a pretty distinct club with deep roots in New York City, but you probably have never heard of it. Found back in 1962, the club now has over 1,000 members, and they're looking for you to spread the word on fungi.
The New York Mycological Society is a mushroom club for all New Yorkers. It's literally a club of people who love mushrooms and fungi. It's 61 years old and it was founded by avant-garde composer John Cage and a few of his anarchist artist friends.
And how many folks are currently involved in the society?
We have about 1,400 members right now, and that's kind of doubled since the pandemic. There is a shroom boom going on right now, and it's because people are discovering these many different aspects of fungi. Sometimes people get a little bit ahead of the science, you know, where they go like, mushrooms will save the world, they'll eat all our trash, you know, and it's like, you know, humans got themselves into this mess, humans will have to figure out how to get out of this mess.
Talk to me about some of the benefits that fungi in our natural ecosystem do to combat climate change naturally.
Right, yeah, so one really important thing that fungi do is just decompose, you know, organic debris, like all the trees and branches that are falling in the forest. You know, if it wasn't for fungi, they would just be lying there and they wouldn't be recycled into organic materials that other organisms can, you know, benefit from. They really help a lot of trees. There's a lot of fungi that have beneficial relationships with trees where they shuttle water and minerals to the tree and the tree pays them back in sugars. It's a very, I want to call it a capitalist or social sort of trading ecosystem. But fungi also sequester greenhouse gases underground, so they sort of take them out of the atmosphere and make sure that they're staying in the ground. So for that, they play a very important role in the much larger sort of universe.
The New York Mycological Society hosts guided walks, scientific lectures, and workshops for city residents to learn more about native mushrooms. But this group is also busy changing mindsets in Albany, too.
You know, New York State has the state bird, the state flower. Are you in the works of creating a state fungi?
Yes, New York has it all. It has a state fossil, it has a state mineral, it has a state snack, it has everything, but it doesn't have a state fungus. And we're campaigning right now to have a state mushroom declared. We have two bills, one in the Assembly and one in the Senate right now, ready to go. Why do we care about a state fungus? Is it just because it's cute? No, it's because fungi never get the conservation attention of, for example, plants or animals. They don't get the conservation dollars, and they're just as much in need of protection.
That's awesome. And can I ask which species?
Yes, so we picked a mushroom that most people haven't heard of, Lactarius peckii. The reason we picked it, it's very beneficial for ecosystems because it lives in partnership with trees. It's not edible, it's not poisonous, and it was discovered by a pioneering female New York mycologist over 100 years ago, and she named it after her mentor, who was the state botanist for New York State. So there's a big local connection that this mushroom has with the state.
While this not-so-secret society is making moves at the state capitol, we were thinking, can we actually use these New York mushrooms? To be clear, we do not condone any public foraging, but one longtime New Yorker is paving the way for curious minds.
Before early agriculture, humans were hunter-gatherers, but the foraging culture didn't stop. One 74-year-old vegan is showing New Yorkers that you don't have to travel that far to find edible plants and mushrooms. Some are in your own backyard.
Okay, here's the first plant we're looking at. Everyone take one. If you can get the root out, all the better, because the root is edible too.
Meet New York City's Wildman, the self-taught educator actively foraging in your parks.
Queens, Brooklyn, Westchester, Connecticut, Long Island.
The Wildman Steve Bro. I have to ask, why forage?
Wild foods are incredibly delicious. They are very nutritious as well. From a culinary point of view, they're pretty unexplored and they're totally renewable. What do you think of the flavor of the leaves? Any comment? Yes, garlicky. The plant is called garlic mustard. Here are the chips. Yeah, left to cook. And you can't get better ingredients to cook with than all this stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Some folks don't understand foraging. What are some misconceptions that you find?
I guess people are afraid of poisoning themselves, and they should be if you do eat the wrong thing. So you have to identify everything with 100% certainty. People think that you have to go out into the country to forage. Look at this. This would be like Donald Trump's nose if he were Pinocchio. That is not true. There's actually more in Central Park than out in the woods. We have sunny open areas, we have wet areas, we have wooded areas, and we have stuff from around the world.
A lot of people are dying to know, are we allowed to like forage stuff in the park?
You have to look for the undercover agents.
Well, Brill was only sort of kidding. He was actually arrested for eating a dandelion in Central Park.
He looks like a nice, gentle sort of fellow, doesn't he? Now the Parks Department thinks so, or otherwise they wouldn't have hired him. But last March, he was nothing more to them than a common criminal.
4 p.m., March 29th, 1986, we had undercover agents on my tour. They were plants, but not the kind I was looking for. I got charged with criminal mischief for removing vegetation from the park because I ate the dandelion, after which the city turned over a new leaf. They dropped the charges and hired me to lead the same tours I was leading when I was arrested.
I want to present a program that will be like a model for park departments all over the country. Vitamin A and more protein.
And then you add wine and tomorrow.
Brill led foraging tours for 4 years under the New York City Parks Department. Now, with over 40 years of experience, he hosts private tours on the weekends. Beginners welcome. And what do you say to someone who's interested in foraging but not quite sure how? They're a beginner, want to be interested.
Well, you learn the things that are the easiest to recognize, and you have to be 100% sure before you eat anything. And then you start off very slowly. You have a few bites the first time, and then you eat more the second time, just in case of allergies or idiosyncratic bad reactions. And fortunately, in 41 years of doing tours, we only had 1 death on all the tours. Yeah, it was in Prospect Park. We were picking a plant called field garlic. I warned everyone, don't pick Star of Bethlehem. 5 minutes later, someone was putting the toxic plant in her bag.
I stopped her before she could eat any of it, but it was too late. She still succumbed. She died of embarrassment. Very tasty. This is late spring, early summer.
Gateway drug into conservation. They learn to identify and use plants, become more comfortable in the environment, work for a more sustainable planet.
In Central Park, I'm Linda Gaudino, News 4 New York.